mystic moon. D.A. Robbie, Stephen, Doc immune to fear and darkness born of night. Hunters of shadows bathed in dim light. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among secrets they keep. Nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. Ladies of the night with eyes of red, vampires in the alleys where good men dread, wolfmen howling beneath the pale moon. But justice is coming and coming soon. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us. They keep. Nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. Cryptids themselves, yet they stand tall against the darkness, answering the call for every lost soul, every whispered prayer. They fight for the light in the midnight air. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us. Secrets they keep. Nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. The night is young, the hunt begins. For against the darkness where hope never ends.
Good evening, folks, and thank you guys for joining us tonight. Yeah, we want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Nightmare Hunters podcast. I'm your host, D.A. Roberts, and as always, I'm joined by my wild brother, Robbie Jed Rains. Unfortunately, Wildman and Doc won't be here tonight. They've both got things going on, but it is good to have all of you guys here tonight. But before we jump into the deep woods and the dark hollows, we want to take a moment for our community. That's you folks. If you've got a prayer request for yourself, your family, a friend, or someone going through a hard time, let us know, because around here we lift each other up, and we already got a few folks on the list this week. We'll be keeping every one of them in our thoughts and prayers tonight. So, Miss Lene, we're thinking about you. Robbie, I know you've got a lot going on. Be praying for Doc. And Wyatt's traveling tonight. He is in Florida right now. So let's pray for him and his family for a safe journey. And anyone in the crowd tonight, you know who you are. We're praying for you folks. So how's everybody doing tonight? Robbie, how you doing, brother?
Upright and breathing.
Sometimes that's the best we can ask for.
Yep.
So, this most recently was the Woodwalkers meet and greet. I did not get to go because of some health reasons, but you want to give us a little bit of recap about what went on down there?
Well, me and Doc and Kevin were all three there, and it was amazing. I mean, there were a lot of good people there. Got to see some people that are in our chat came to see us. We had a great time. I wish my time coming home would have been as good as the time there. But yeah, it was a really, really good event. Spencer and Greg and Roger, he helped out with them too, but they all put on just an amazing event. And Spencer and I were talking, and the conferences are good, and they're fun too, but that atmosphere, that venue where you're just sitting around talking, and you don't feel like you're tied to a table or you on a schedule. You just kind of sit around and talk and get up and walk around. It's so much more fun, so relaxing. And anybody that came and said, "Hey, thank you," Doc and I had a really good time. I know Kevin had a good time. Don, my driver's side front end, decided it wasn't going to work no more. Had a CV axle, a wheel hub assembly, and all that go out on those mountain roads in Tennessee. And I got stranded in Marshall, North Carolina with that much cell service. So I didn't get home till midnight when I should have been home at like 4:00 in the afternoon.
Well, I'm glad you're all right, because that could have been much worse.
Yeah, it was kind of stressful, but luckily the guy's house that I broke down in front of, there was another girl. Luckily, I was as bad as her. She was coming the other way. She slam dunked her Jeep into the creek behind me, but the guy it was right in front of his house. He was super nice. He let me use his phone on Wi-Fi, and I was able to call Taylor and Tyler, and they dropped what they were doing and drove 2 hours to come pick me up. And then I took the next day off work, and my principal, bless her soul, her husband let me borrow his truck, and her dad let me borrow his trailer, and her dad drove me up there. We trailered my truck back down because the place that did the work on my truck was going to charge me $800 to tow the truck back. So, yeah.
Thank you, Bobby and Chicken Bird, for the gifted memberships.
Awesome, thank y'all. But yeah, it was a interesting couple of hours in the mountains of North Carolina.
It could have been a lot worse, like I said. Yeah. I'm just glad you're all right.
Yeah, because Taylor said they lost service about 30 minutes before they found me. Said Tyler's like, "What do we do?" Taylor said, "Well, just keep driving straight and hope we see him." I'm like, well, glad y'all kept driving straight and didn't make any turns. So, but other than that, me and Doc both had a great time seeing everybody. It was, and Kevin, it was nice to be able to see everybody. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, it was a little hairy coming down. And, I've come to find out that I-40, apparently they don't work on it except on Sunday afternoons when I'm trying to come back from somewhere. Because every time I've come back from DA's, they've been working on Sunday. And I got rerouted on that mountain roads. And every time I turned to the left, the truck let me know it didn't like it. So anyway, it's taken care of. Truck's here. It's in my driveway with the front wheel off. I got the parts yesterday, and my son-in-law is going to come help me on Saturday morning. We're going to put all the parts back on it. So hopefully everything's in preparation to be fixed.
Since it's a new month and we hadn't done it anyway, I'm giving away all 10 of the memberships tonight. So those should be popping up over the next couple minutes.
No, Nick, it wasn't a driver returns on foot. It was a driver waits for his daughter and son-in-law to come pick him up. Because as it was getting dark, I was like, well, not to mention the fact that it was in the middle of some hairy-looking country, but it was on one of them little two-lane mountain roads. I probably would have got taken out by a car before I would have got taken out by a Bigfoot or a dog man. Because they were flying down that road.
Never fails, man. But I'm glad you're all right. Yeah, like I said, it could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
So, but overall, the LBL event was awesome, right?
Oh yeah, it was really good.
God, I wish I could have been there.
Doc and I got there a day early then the event was going to start. But there was other people that was there this time. But we went back to the place. We went through the Mumbers Bay, drove by where you had your sighting, and then drove back to where I had my sighting, and did some nighttime investigation out there. It didn't really. There was a lot of traffic. Plus, that's on the side where that controlled burn was. So we kind of think that might have had something to do with it. But there was a few things that were kind of weird and kind of off, but nothing as profound as what I had 2 years before. But
well, right after you guys got there, Doc texted me. He's like, "I'll say one thing about this place. It's quiet."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was standing there when spooky quiet. I was like, "Yep, that's been my experience there too."
Oh yeah, that didn't change. It's like, we could hear at one point we could hear crickets like way across the road from us on the side that the visitor center's on, and all of a sudden they would stop, and then we'd hear them on the side we were on, but then they would stop on that side, and then it would just be completely silent. You wouldn't hear them anywhere. So,
that's the way it was that night I was in the Mumbers Bay by myself. It was just dead quiet. No crickets, no nothing. Well, I'm really glad you guys had a good time. So without further ado, folks, we're going to go ahead and start jumping into this. But tonight we're going to go to some places that, well, that just have that feel like we were just talking about, that uncanny quiet. This episode is 411, The Scream in the Timber. And it's right here in the Ozarks where the weirdness seems to be centralized. There are places here in the Ozarks where the night just doesn't fall. It seems to press in on you. Where the timber grows so tight in the moonlight, you can't find the ground. Where the hollows twist sound into something older than language. Where the air feels heavy, like the woods are holding their breath. And in those places, the deep ridges, the forgotten trails, the river bottoms where the fog clings to the water, people have heard something they can't explain. It ain't a cougar. It ain't a bobcat. It ain't a fox. And it ain't something a person could make either. It's a scream. A long, rising, almost tearing sound that starts like a howl and ends like something being ripped out of this world. For decades, hunters, hikers, rangers, deputies, and search and rescue teams have reported the same thing across Arkansas and Missouri. A predator type of scream that doesn't match any animal that they have ever heard of. Nothing that's supposed to be in this area. These aren't campfire stories. They're not just legends. This isn't the Ozark Howler stories. But these are documented cases where they have heard something that they didn't see it, but they couldn't explain it either. These stories coming from sheriff's office calls, state park ranger reports, National Park Service incident files, Missouri Department of Conservation investigations, search and rescue debriefings, and audio recordings that have been reviewed by biologists. Overall, these are 8 encounters tonight, 8 real events, 8 moments where the woods broke their silence and something screamed back. Tonight, we're going to walk into those hollows. We're going to follow the real reports from the Newton County, Arkansas screams to the Devil's Den Patrol to the Twain National Forest shadowing to the Alley Spring incident and Taney County livestock attacks. The Ozark Highlands Trail recording, the Shannon County River Stalker, and the Buffalo River search and rescue case. Not monsters, not folklore, no exaggeration, just the truth. There's something in the Ozarks that's making a sound that no one can identify. And whatever it is, it's still out there because these reports are still coming in. So if you're joining us tonight in the Dark Timber, do us a favor, like the episode, share it with someone who knows these woods, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the show directly, consider becoming a channel member like the ones that were given away earlier. It helps us keep the research going, keeps the stories coming, and keeps the hunt alive. This is episode 411, The Scream in the Timber, and we are the Nightmare Hunters. Robbie, do you want to take us into segment 1?
Sure. Segment 1 is Newton County 2011, the 3-night scream. Newton County sits on one of the wildest corners of the Arkansas Ozarks, a place where the ridges roll like waves and the hollows run so deep the sun doesn't touch the ground until mid-morning. It's quiet country, not empty, just quiet. In that old world way where sound travels far and carries weight. In the fall of 2011, that quiet broke. It started on a Thursday night, just after sundown near Buffalo National River. A handful of homes sit scattered along a gravel road that winds between two steep ridges. Folks there are used to the usual night sounds: coyotes yipping, dogs barking, the occasional bobcat scream that cuts through the dark like a knife. But this wasn't that. Around 9:30 p.m., the first scream rolled out of the timber, long, rising, sharp at the end, like something being torn in half. It echoed off the ridges and came back, doubled, like two voices overlapping. People stepped out on their porches. Dogs went silent. One man later said it felt like the sound was pushed the air out of the hollow. A few minutes later, it came again, and then again. By the third scream, someone called the sheriff's office. Deputies drove out, lights off, windows down, listening. They heard nothing. The woods had gone dead quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel watched. The next night, it happened again. This time, more people heard it: families, hunters, a pair of hikers camping near the river. The scream came from the ridge to the east, then from the ridge to the west, as if something was moving fast, covering ground no human could cover in that terrain. One of the hikers described it as a howl that breaks into a woman's scream, but deeper and heavier, like it came from the chest of a size of a barrel. He said the sound vibrated the ground under his sleeping bag. Deputies returned. They checked the area for trespassers, injured hikers, anything that could explain the noise. They found nothing. No tracks, no camps, no sign of a cougar. An Arkansas Game and Fish continued no confirmed mountain lion presence in that region at the time. The third night was worse. Just after midnight, the scream tore through the hollow again, louder, closer, and sharper. A woman who lived alone called the sheriff's office in tears, convinced someone was being murdered in the woods behind her house. Another call said it sounded like a man screaming into a megaphone, but wrong, like the pitch was twisted. Deputies arrived within minutes, and this time they heard it. Two deputies standing beside their cruisers heard a long, rising howl that snapped into a scream so violent it made one of them flinch. They later wrote in their report that the sound was not consistent with any known wildlife vocalization in the region. They swept the ridge with spotlights. Nothing. No eye shine, no movement, no tracks, and no explanation. And then, as suddenly as it started, the scream stopped. The woods went silent, and the event was logged as unidentified vocalization, no known source. Locals still talk about those 3 nights. Some say it was a big cat. Some say it was a feral person. Some say it was something injured. But the people who heard it, especially the deputies, they don't buy those explanations. Because whatever made that sound, it wasn't moving like a person. It wasn't screaming like a cat. And it wasn't acting like anything they'd ever encountered in those woods. It was something else. Something that knew the ridges, something that moved fast, and something that screamed loud enough to shake the hollow. And after those 3 nights in 2011, it never happened again. Not in that hollow, not like that, and not with that voice. But the Ozarks have long memories, and the woods don't forget sounds like that. Whew.
Oh, what do you think of that? What do you think? It was a howl? Because I'm not going to rule out Ozark's howler on any of these, but none of these have visual sightings to correlate. That's definitely sounds like a predator to me.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely. But I'm of the opinion that it wasn't one moving fast. I believe it was multiple, and that's hollering across the ridge like that was communication, maybe for coordination for attacks. But, yeah, I'm like you. I'm not going to rule out an Ozark's howler, but also we've heard plenty of people talk about Bigfoot screaming like that.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So I definitely don't think it was a normal animal like a mountain lion or a bear or anything like that. I think it was either a howler or a Bigfoot, or perhaps it was one of those rare occasions where they're challenging each other because their territories are close.
And could have been that. It could have been 2 separate
I mean, it's a big enough area where they can have a range when they don't actually encounter each other. But on those occasions when they do actually come into the same area, yeah, there's going to be grit. There's going to be something going down. So I think this might, since it hasn't happened since, I think it was one of those rare times where those territories kind of overlapped and they happened to be in that overlap zone at the same time.
And that may have been what the 3 nights of screaming was a challenge. You know, one challenging the other, and then one finally backed off, and that's why it's never happened again.
Yeah, my guess is they have similar movement patterns through those areas, but they're not necessarily synced up. But even when things aren't synced up, they occasionally bump. And I think since that happened one time for 3 nights, I think that's probably what that case was.
That makes as much sense as anything else. So, I mean,
Wyatt, I'm down like 4 flat tires. I'm ready.
Yep. Let's not talk about flat tires right now.
Sorry, brother. Too soon.
Yeah. I still got one of those to replace.
But the way the deputies reacted to that.
Yeah, and that's just like we talked about. Like, I don't know if you've watched that video that I sent to you yet, but
Haven't watched it yet.
You need to watch.
Had a lot
that.
going on.
You need to watch that because some of that would have kind of, I think, correlated with what we were doing tonight. But anyway, watch that video. You may want to do a show on that.
Okay. Miss Lene, yeah, I believe they do.
Yeah, I do too. But but that's where the point I was going with that was like credible witnesses like that, people who don't have anything to gain from making statements like that. That's the kind that make you sit up and say,
Right. Lone Queen, we don't know they don't run in packs. I mean, you could be very, very correct there. Could be ones that are outcasts or scouts or something. Yeah, you got a very valid point there. I mean, that's why they're cryptids. We just don't know enough about them to classify them as a known animal. So, yeah, that's a good theory.
Like Nick said, mating season out. I mean, who knows? Could have very well been it too. I mean, any of these theories have as much weight as the next because, like DA said multiple times, we don't know, and
anybody, I don't care who they are, anybody that tries to tell you they've got all the answers is full of it. So just don't let anybody convince you their way is the only way. We're not going to try. We keep saying it over and over again, and hopefully one day people will actually listen. There are no experts in this field, no matter how many times they've been on TV or how big their podcast. There are no experts.
Very true.
Dylan Camp. There we go. Let me bring that up. He kind of Dylan Camp. He says migration patterns. Exactly. That's kind of what we were saying. Mm-hmm. How that we believe that there are different creatures here in the Ozarks because we've got dogman sightings within a few miles of Bigfoot sightings, within a few miles of Ozarks howler sightings, and other things. Even bipedal cat creatures down in Drury Mincy. I think that at certain points their territories do overlap, and I think when they're in that overlap area at the same time, I think that's when the problems come. Yeah, but their foraging areas got to be huge. So I would say that their overlap areas, while also probably being considerable, the chances of them being in that same area at the same time are probably pretty low.
And I think we have so many weird weather patterns over the past decade. The way I think that might have a lot to do with normally they're used to being in one area at one time of the year, but because of the way the weather is, it might have one hold off a little bit longer than necessary, and that might cause some of that that things like that. If it is something like that, that could very well cause something like that. Right. Just that little bit of time where it overlaps where, okay, like we've speculated that, different times we go into Joe Bald, we have different experiences. But if they do follow a certain time of the year pattern, like other animals, with these weird weather patterns, they may hold up in a spot a little bit longer than they normally would, and that causes some overlap with stuff like that.
Or here's another thought on that, kind of playing on that, Robbie. Those overlaps might be more common than we know, but there is so much deep woods in the Ozarks
We just don't see
that
it.
the really true golden overlap is when those overlap with areas where there are people. Because you and I both know, well, hell, we've been places in the Mark Twain where you couldn't swing a cat and hit another person. I mean, there ain't nobody around for miles.
Yeah. And stuff like that happens then. Nobody sees it or hears it or there to document it. But when it happens,
Right, if ain't nobody out there, the old adage, if a tree falls in the woods.
Does it still make a sound?
Yeah, I would imagine those overlaps probably happen more often than we realize. But since there's such vast areas where nobody lives, I think that's probably a lot to why we don't hear it as often.
Yeah, well, and like Doc was talking about that, and I think Kevin was talking about it too. Until you go into a place like the LBL, most people don't realize how big that area is. It's
like 250,000 square acres in the OBL,
and
that's a lot of land when you think about it.
But when people look at those lakes and how big those lakes are, and it's just like, oh, people think it's just a little strip of land in between them. That place is huge.
It is massive.
It from Colson's Holler campsite to where I had my encounter, it takes you 30 minutes driving the trace to get there. It don't seem like it does because you're in the car, you're talking, all that kind of stuff. But it's 30 minutes from where where the meet and greet was to where I had my encounter, which is right where you had your encounter. So I mean, it doesn't seem like, but that's a big area. If it takes you 30 minutes to drive from point A to point B and you're still in the same area, that's a big place.
Camo Dad says the Adirondacks are 30,000 acres and nothing but mountains and swamp. Well, here in the Ozarks, if you take the Ozark National Forest and the Mark Twain National Forest, which those are pretty much right up against one another, they're within just a very short distance apart. But if you take the two of those together, that's almost 5 million acres. And believe me, that's a lot of land. Oh, and that's just Missouri and Arkansas. That's not counting national parks and other national forests. I think we figured it up one night. It's when you look at Bureau of Land Management land usage, when you look at reservations and wildlife management areas, when you look at all of this government land that we don't have full access to, it adds up to over 1 billion square acres. 1 billion with a B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, we've talked about this so many times. It's not even fun. There's just so much land in this country that that nobody has probably ever walked on, or at least in 100 years or more.
Camo, you ain't wrong, brother. There are places in the Mark Twain I could take you that with just a little hiking, you could be into valleys that probably have seen a handful of people in the last 100 years. I mean, and that's just off the places I know and that I can get to. There's some places that literally only place to get to it in the middle of the Mark Twain is by days of travel on foot because there's no trails or roads to it.
Kevin says the LBL is 170,000 acres.
That's 170. I thought it was like 200 or 250, but yeah, 170 is still a heck of a lot of land.
Yeah,
it ain't nothing to sneeze about.
And it's very, very easy when you're in there to see how things like that could be in there and not be seen unless they choose to be.
Exactly, and that's the thing. If they choose to be. When it comes to stuff like that, and we've talked about it, dozens of times about movement and how you could walk up on a deer and if it doesn't move, you'll dang near on top of it before it kicks up and moves. Mm-hmm. Every deer I've ever got from deer hunting, I only saw it because it was moving. And if it wasn't moving, those things blend in really effectively. And that's not even that's adaptive camouflage, but not to the level that we think that some of these cryptids are capable.
Leonard the meet and greet, that part of the camp, or the
Colson's
LBL,
Hall.
Kentucky. Yeah, Colson's Hall is in Kentucky. There's no, I mean, the lion's share of LBL is in Kentucky, I believe.
I think it's about half. I think it kind of runs down the middle.
Well, at least
But those lakes are massive.
The bad part's in Kentucky, where all the action, all the action happens. I mean, there's probably stuff in Tennessee too, but
well, they say there are more Bigfoot sightings in the southern end, but there are Bigfoot sightings in the northern end as well. But the infamous LBL massacre was in the northern end. The story of where the couple was killed outside their tent, that was witnessed by a game and fish officer, that was in the north end. That was right in Demumber's Bay. The bicyclists were in the northern end. My sighting was in the northern end.
So was mine.
So yeah, I think the north end of LBL is the most active, but I wouldn't say that means that you're not going to have something happen in the southern end. I just think the north end is more active, and I think the reason for that is the north end is the tip of the peninsula. To get off the north end, the only way is that bridge that goes into Grand Rivers. Now, in the southern end, that's where it's attached to land. So the southern end actually goes down toward like Werewolf Springs and out into other forests. But everything that gets up to the end of that peninsula is stuck there unless they go across that bridge.
Yeah.
Or want to swim, and that's a deep lake. So you want to segue us into the next one?
Absolutely. What happened in Newton County wasn't an isolated event. Just 4 years later, a state park ranger on night patrol heard almost the exact same sound, a rising howl that cracked into a scream, echoing through the dark timber of Devil's Den. And this time, the ranger wasn't just a witness. He was the one to call for backup. Segment 2, The Devil's Den of 2015, starts right after this. DA, take it away.
I've been to Devil's Den, and I'm sure Wyatt probably has too. You know, Wyatt can talk about that in the chat if he wants to.
That's where we were headed. The last time I was there, that's where the two were supposedly missing from, so we were headed that way too.
Devil's Den is a creepy place on a good day in the daylight. But this happened back in 2015. There was a ranger on night patrol. Devil's Den State Park is one of the oldest, wildest pockets of Arkansas Ozarks. It's a place where the ridges almost feel like they're folding over on top of each other, like knuckles, and the valleys run narrow and deep. The Civilian Conservation Corps, my dad was in the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 1930s. They built the trails and the cabins there back in the 30s, but the land itself just feels older than that, older than the people, older than memory, really. On a cold October night in 2015, a park ranger was making his usual patrol along the winding roads that cut through the heart of that park. It was late, it was close to midnight, and the kind of night where the air kind of hangs still and the woods feel heavy, like they're holding something back. He drove around with his windows cracked, listening. Rangers know the sounds of their parks, the way sailors know the sea. Every rustle, every call, every shift in the wind means something. And you know, deputies get that same kind of gut instinct when they've patrolled an area a lot. You just kind of know the sounds. You get that feeling. So Devil's Den has its own language, just like any other officer. They learn to understand that language. There's owls, coyotes, the distant bark of a fox, the soft trickle of Lee Creek moving over the stones. But that night the woods were quiet. Really quiet. He slowed his truck near a trailhead, stepped out, and let the silence settle around him. The moon was thin, just barely a sliver, and the timber pressed in on both sides of the road. He just clicked off his flashlight and listened. At first there was nothing, just the faint hum of insects and the distant whisper of wind moving through the pines. Then it came. A long, rising howl that started low, almost like a moan, and then climbed in pitch until it snapped into a sharp, violent scream that echoed through the hollow like a crack of lightning. The ranger froze. He'd heard bobcats scream before. He'd heard foxes, coyotes, even the occasional mountain lion that drifted through the park, but this wasn't any of those. This was deeper, heavier, louder than anything that should have been able to move through those woods without shaking the trees. He radioed it in, thinking maybe, just maybe, a hiker was in trouble. The scream had that edge to it, that human-like terror at the end that makes your instincts kick. Dispatch asked if he needed backup. He hesitated a second and said, yes. Before the second ranger arrived, the scream came again, this time from farther down the ridgeline. The same rising howl, the same tearing finish, the same unnatural volume. The ranger swept the ridge with his flashlight, but the beam died long before it reached the tree line. The woods swallowed the light like it wasn't even there. He stepped closer to the trailhead, listening. The woods had gone dead silent again. No insects, no owls, no movement. Just that thick, heavy quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. And when the second ranger finally arrived, they moved together down the trail, scanning the timber. But they didn't find anything. No tracks, no broken branches, no sign of a person or an animal. The ground was just dry. The leaves were thick, and anything large should have left some trace. But there wasn't anything. The scream didn't come again. Not that night, not for the rest of the season, and not for any of the years since. But in the incident report, the ranger described the sound as a long howl that breaks into a scream, not consistent with known wildlife in the park. Arkansas State Parks reviewed it, but without evidence, the case was closed as unidentified vocalization. But the rangers still talk about that night. Not because they think it was something supernatural, because they don't. Not because but because they know the woods. They know the sounds and they know the animals there. And whatever screamed in Devil's Den Park that night, it wasn't something they recognized. It was something else. Something that moved fast, something that stayed just out of sight, and something that made the woods go dead quiet. And in Devil's Den, silence is never a good thing.
Yeah, and like we said before, places don't get the name Devil's Elbow and Devil's Den and Devil's Pitchfork
Exactly.
and Devil's Frying Pan. They don't get those names because you go get cupcakes up there.
Yeah, it's funny. Funny about that, because there are places I could take you to here in Missouri. Like, there's a place called the Devil's Kitchen, the Devil's Dinner Table. There's places that just have these really bizarre names for no reason. But I mentioned if you look far enough back to the people that gave it those names, there's a reason, all right, but it's just not recorded.
Yeah. Well, it's like I've said, and Rodney's in the chat. He'll tell you, we got a road up here called Booger Branch Road. I wonder why it got that name.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think somebody was out there flicking boogers.
No.
Because we all know what booger means in the South.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I know people in Missouri that still refer to those big lights you put on your barn as booger lights.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've stopped at several places. Like, I used to just drive back roads looking for the most lit up houses, because in the middle of nowhere, when you find a house with, like down there by Smiddle Cave, when you find a house that's just lit up, and when you find a house that's just lit up like crazy in the middle of nowhere, there's a reason. And it's talking to some of those folks where I feel like, yeah, there's a reason we have all these lights. It's to keep something away from the house at night.
Yeah, because that place was lit up like a freaking airstrip.
Yeah, it was. And it's in the middle of nowhere. He's probably got 15 or 20 of those big pole-mounted booger lights.
Every square inch of his house is bathed in light when it's dark.
There is no shadows around that house at night. When we drove down there, Robbie was like, "Would you look at that?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of telling, ain't it?"
Like, does he want to lay out and get a suntan in the middle of the night? Because he can do it.
Does he want to sit in his yard and read? Because he could.
He can do that too.
Yeah. Even around the barn, there was no angle of approach to that barn that was in shadow.
And it wasn't like this house was far off the road either. I mean, it literally was right on the road. So it's not like you're saying, okay, well, it's back off the road and they're trying, in case it's right on the road. So it's just,
it's off the main road. It's off a gravel road.
Yeah.
And ain't any other houses for a little ways.
It's,
But by
it's
God,
not off of that gravel road too far. Is what I mean.
right? Yeah, I mean, you could throw a rock from the gravel road and hit the house. But yeah, he's cut back a lot of timber around that house and lit that area up big.
Yeah.
Richie says, used to have booger lights in West Liberty, Kentucky. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of folks still call them that. There was a place up by Sleeper, Missouri. I was driving some of the back roads up there, and it's just this little house, like a little 2 or 3 bedroom house, little farmhouse,
Hey, flat
out in the middle of nowhere, just lit up like a Christmas tree at night.
Flat Rock's in the chat.
Hey, Flat Rock, what's up, brother? Thanks, Arlen. Appreciate you, man. Ultra says we call a few different things booger in the South. But that happening in Devil's Den, that's kind of telling for a couple of seasoned rangers to be like, you know what? It's time to go.
Yeah. Would you look at the time?
Yeah. Like that night down a Blunk Road when we realized it was looking at us. Hey, is that a rock out in the road? Nope, rocks don't turn around.
Bobby, get in the truck.
And I still laugh when I think about that night when me, you, and Noah were driving down there the first time I took you down there, and I was like, "What the hell is that in the road up there? That looks like a head. It is a head. There's a freaking deer head in the middle of the road, out in the middle of nowhere, just like it had just been set there."
Oh, Rodney's answering it. He said, Booger Branch Road in 6 Mile area near Pickens, South Carolina is believed to be named after a local legend involving a booger, ghost, or spooky creature chasing a man riding a mule. There you go. Thanks, Rod. I knew he would be Johnny on the spot with it.
Hell yeah.
Robin Doc's first book is called Dark Frontiers, Vampire Chronicles, Angels of the Wilderness.
Yeah, if you watch, the link will be popping up shortly. Well, Devil's Den, there's a lot of activity, a lot of reports from down in that area. In fact, that whole area down there, that's part of the foothills of the Boston Mountains. And you know how many stories we've talked about from the Boston Mountains. That's down near War Eagle State Park, where those people reported getting chased out on horseback by a gugway. There's a lot of sightings from that area, and a lot of people just don't realize how many sightings come out of the Ozarks, because a lot of them just don't get reported to places like the BFRO or organizations like that. They're just, for the most part, they just get told around the Ozarks, so almost like campfire stories. But anytime I've ever gone to deer camp, you can't go to deer camp without someone bringing one up. Like, boys, you ain't gonna believe what happened to me when I was over in so and so county.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we said. I mean, these places get names for reasons.
Well, there are houses out there on Blunk Road, but where we were at, nothing. We were far enough down on Blunk Road where you couldn't see anything. No lights from houses, nothing. It was just pitch black.
What? 400 or 500 yards from the last house that we passed?
Easily.
Hey, Jess.
Hi, Jessica. And I think, these Rangers reports, even though they didn't have a visual sighting, I think these kind of go hand in hand with some of the stuff we've experienced right here in the Ozarks.
Yeah. And, well, I hate to keep going back to this video because you didn't watch it, but there's a lot of stuff. There's so much stuff.
I'm going to tonight.
There's so many things that there was some stuff that I didn't agree with,
But there were so many things I was like, we said that.
I will be watching that for tonight for sure. But if you notice the description of the howl, almost identical to the one in Newton County.
Yep.
And Newton County, I'm sure Wyatt can confirm this, Newton County ain't all that far from Devil's Den State Park.
Very true.
So the woods going silent. We're going dead quiet on him. We've had that happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, where we were at in down in Combs Ferry, dude, we were 4 miles from the Arkansas border, if that. That's extreme southern Missouri right there.
Yeah.
And
I bet it's the crow flies from where we were at in Combs Ferry. If you went straight into the crow flies, probably wouldn't be any more than 1.5 miles, 2 miles at the most.
what Rodney wants to know if there's I'm assuming he's talking about the screams we're talking about. Was there any recordings of them?
None that I could find. These were all documented, but I couldn't find any copies of any of these recordings. But I'm willing to bet that it sounds very much like a certain recording from South Carolina, because it starts out almost like it starts out like a roar and it ends up like a scream.
Yep. Flat Rock got to hear that howl this weekend too.
Flat Rock, what'd you think of that howl? You know, in fact, I've got that set up if you wanted me to play it.
Sure, go ahead. I'm sure there's probably people.
Man, that thing gives me the heebie-jeebies every time I hear it.
Yeah. Flat Rock's got some stuff on audio that'll give you the heebie-jeebies too.
I'd like to hear it. I really would.
Yeah. He and I were passing videos and recordings and pictures.
Did you show him the video, the one I sent you? What did he say to that?
You talking about
the dog?
Yes. Wow, I think was the answer to that.
That was pretty terrifying.
But I believe wow was your response to that one.
I think when we're talking about this one with the Rangers, this story.
Everybody, that howl was very close to Rodney's house.
I think with that story talking about the Rangers, I think it's interesting that they could hear it moving, but they couldn't find any sign of it.
Yeah.
But then again, if those woods are anything like the woods we've been in, they're so dang thick, if it was more than 10 yards away, you ain't going to see it. Well, like that night down by Bennett Springs when we left Moon Valley, we could catch hints of eye shine way back in the woods, but you couldn't see shapes.
No. But you could hear.
Yeah, you could hear it. But they were way back in those thick woods.
And I don't care what anybody says. You can't convince me that they didn't follow us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely followed us.
And they followed us back to Moon Valley because then we started hearing stuff from that side of the road.
Yep. Yeah, that Moon Valley area is just creepy. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And that pattern matches this. I mean, that hearing them from a distance, they don't get close, but you know they're there. I'm telling you, there's something really bizarre about the way things overlap here in the Ozarks. We got about 5 minutes until we got to take a quick commercial break. So, trying to think of anything else I want to say about that. Yeah, there's no way that was just like a normal bobcat, mountain lion, anything like that, because the rangers would have known the difference. I mean, like for example, you in your first book, your Silver Star, you knew how those woods sound because that's where you used to patrol.
Mm-hmm.
So any out of place noise, you'd know it.
Yeah. And what's funny you mentioned that when we were coming back from when Taylor and Tyler come pick me up, we drove right through there, and I said, "Hey guys, what?" I said, "We're right in the area where Rick got attacked in book 1," and Tyler was looking around. There wasn't no other cars around. So he slowed down and cut the lights off, and he was like, "Oh my god!" And Taylor's like, "This is creepy. Turn the lights back on." I said, "Yeah, you see why I set it up here, right?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely." He said, "This is creepy."
Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Congratulations to everybody that won tonight. Thank you again, Bobby. Appreciate it, man. So, I think, especially they say that even though it's been years since that happened, the Rangers still talk about it. That had to leave a pretty big psychological mark on these guys for them to still be talking about it. What's that, 11 years ago, 2015?
Yeah.
And that's one of those areas, just like when you were talking about shutting off the lights and it getting creepy. That's one of those areas that it feels like the north end of LBL when you cut the lights off in the dark. And it's just a very deep valleys, deep ravines, thick woods, and nobody else around for miles. When you shut those lights off, you really do feel like you're just the last person on Earth. I mean, it's just that isolated.
Yeah, Harold, that's what I was sitting there thinking, waiting for Taylor and Tyler to come get me. I was looking at that area, and it was kind of hairy because where I was sitting, there was a little creek, and then it went straight up a little ridge, and it was just like that thick, heavy woods. And I'm like, yeah, I hope I don't have to sleep in this truck because it ain't gonna be fun.
Robbie be laying there with a pistol on his lap, just on his chest, like one eye open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a creepy night spending out there alone.
Yeah, it would have.
Sorry, we can't get there till about 7 a.m. Oh, crap.
Where's the wild hunt when you need them?
No kidding. I'm culling for a full extraction. Coming hot.
Where's Margolin?
Yeah, if there's something stupid to be done, you can bet he's in the middle of it.
Yep.
Okay, we got about a minute till we've got to take a quick break.
Hey,
Who's there? Who's here?
Miss Verby. Look at DA's hat, Miss Verby. You see, he got the pen you sent to him.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Annette tried to steal it. She tried to steal my pen. Like, no, that's mine. She's like, oh, I like that. I'm like, well, you can like it from a distance. It's mine. But folks, we're going to take a quick break, pay some bills. So if you get a great time to fill up your coffee, stretch your legs, walk the dog, check on the kids, whatever y'all need to do. I forgot to mention earlier to keeping folks in your prayers. Mention Race. Race is having a bout of pancreatitis, and he's got him down. So if you guys think about Race tonight, say a quick word for him, as he's struggling with it. So, since we are taking a quick pause, I wanted to say that. So we will see you guys in just a few minutes, and we will be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. 2026 is off to a great start, and it's almost time. With many exciting predictions and the recent emphasis on a potential major planetary event occurring in April, it promises to be a super transformational month, and we couldn't be more excited to be in Hawaii during this shift to integrate new frequencies. Folks, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. April the 20th through the 24th, 2026, join us in Kona, Hawaii for Journey to Truth's very first vacation conference retreat. Enjoy 9 presenters over 5 days with ocean adventures with dolphins and whales and sacred sites and so much more. Experience Hawaii like never before. You will enjoy 5 days on the Big Island, so don't wait. Start planning your trip today at journeytotruth.online. That's journeytotruth.online. The paranormal field is changing, and now, more than ever, it's time for professionals to lead the way. Join the Oz Professional Paranormal Investigators Association, a global network of serious investigators dedicated to raising the standard of real paranormal research. Access professional certifications, advanced training, and courses exploring true investigation, psychic phenomena. If you're a real paranormal investigator, be a part of the group defining the future. Join today. Visit ozinstitute.org. That's ozinstitute.org.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
In a world where monsters still walk the earth, one author dares to face them. From the brutal cryptid horror of the Apex Predator series to the Ozark legends that stalk the night in Lakeview Man, from the elite warriors of codename Wild Hunt to the relentless investigations of the Nightmare Hunter and the frontier terror of Dark Frontiers. When the Dead Rise, the Ragnarok Rising saga unleashes pure zombie apocalypse fury. And across the stars, war rages in the Lost Legion and Man's Marauders. And in the realm of myth and steel, the world of Vanguard calls to those born for legend. Cryptids, zombies, sci-fi warfare, epic fantasy. This is the universe of D.A. Roberts.
And we are back, folks. Thanks for sticking with us. And, the ranger at Devil's Den wasn't alone. Just over the state line here in Missouri, in the Mark Twain National Forest, a place where we've been quite a bit, a hunter experienced something even more unnerving. Not just a scream, but the unmistakable feeling of being shadowed through the timber by something large, quiet, and deliberate. Robbie, will you take us into segment 3?
Absolutely. Segment 3, Mark Twain National Forest, 2004, The Shadow in the Timber. Mark Twain National Forest is a different kind of wild than the deep Arkansas hollows. The Missouri Ozarks feel older, heavier, a place where the ridgelines run long and the valleys hold on to fog like a secret. The timber is thick, the underbrush is dense, and the silence can feel like a living thing. In November of 2004, a hunter stepped into that silence before dawn, heading towards a ridge he'd hunted for years. He knew the land well, every bend in the trail, every game trail crossing, every place where the wind shifted direction. He wasn't new to the woods, and he wasn't easily spooked. That morning, something just felt off. He parked the truck at the end of the Forest Service Road, slung his rifle, and started up the trail. The air was cold enough to sting his lungs, and the leaves were dry underfoot. That brittle, late fall crunch that echoes through the timber. About a quarter mile in, he stopped. He didn't know why, but he just stopped. The woods were too quiet. There was no owls, no wind, no movement at all. He took a few more steps, and that's when he heard it. Soft, deliberate footfall in the leaves behind him. Not a squirrel, not a deer. Something heavier, something pacing him. He turned around, scanning the timber with his flashlight. The beam cut through the trees, but found nothing. No eye shine, no movement, just the thick, unmoving dark. He kept walking, and the footsteps kept pace. Every time he stopped, they stopped. Every time he moved, they moved. Always just far enough back that he couldn't see what was following him. He tried to tell himself it was a deer, maybe a hog, maybe even another hunter, but the rhythm was wrong, too controlled, too intentional. Predators moved like that, slow, measured, matching your pace, just enough to stay out of sight. He reached a clearing near the top of the ridge and waited, listening. Footsteps stopped at the edge of the timber. Then came the sound, a low growl, deep, resonant, almost a vibration more than a noise. It rolled through the clearing like a warning. The hunter later said it felt like it came from the chest that was the size of a barrel. He raised his rifle, scanning the tree line, but nothing, just the darkness. Then the growl changed. It rose, slowly, steadily, into a long, drawn-out howl that cracked into a scream so sharp that it made his ears ring. It echoed off the ridge and came back distorted, like the woods were screaming with it. He'd heard bobcats scream before, and he'd heard foxes, he'd heard coyotes, and this wasn't any of those. This was bigger, heavier. It was wrong. He backed toward the trail, rifle up, heart pounding. Then the scream came again, closer this time, maybe 50 yards into the timber. Excuse me. He couldn't see anything, but he could feel it. That pressure in the air when something large is watching you. He didn't run. He didn't dare. He walked backward down the trail, keeping his eyes on the tree line. The footsteps followed him again, slow, deliberate, matching his pace. Every time he stopped, they stopped. Every time he moved, they moved. When he reached the Forest Service Road, the footsteps stopped. The woods went silent, and whatever had followed him stayed in the timber. He got in his truck, locked the doors, and drove straight to the nearest MDC office. He wasn't panicked, and he wasn't angry. He wanted answers. He wanted to know what had stalked him through the woods. MDC officers took the report seriously. They checked the area. They found tracks, large, deep, but incomplete due to the leaf cover. They couldn't identify the species. The official note in the call records reads, unidentified large animal, vocalization inconsistent with known wildlife. The hunter never went back to that ridge, not because he was afraid. He said he wasn't, but because he felt something up there that didn't want him or didn't fit in those woods. Something that moved like a predator, something that watched him, something that screamed like nothing he'd ever heard. And in the Twain National Forest, where the timber runs deep and the ridges swallow sound, that kind of encounter stays with you.
Oh yeah, it definitely stays with you.
That's pretty spooky. I would imagine he even though he didn't say it, I would imagine he was just a little bit unnerved.
Probably more than a little, more than he wanted to admit.
Yeah.
And can you blame him?
No, not at all.
I mean, we look for the same thing. I mean, technically, it's part of the Twain National Forest. How were we that night we got back from Combs Ferry?
Oh yeah,
we were shook for hours.
And the Moon Valley night. I mean, because and I don't think me and you really thought about it till the next day, but when we were talking about it and how far away from Doc and Noah the two of us were,
we had gotten much farther than we should have.
Yeah, and that night we didn't think about it, but later on, especially when we were sitting at the Bent Penny with Steve, and we were like really, digesting it and talking about it, and realizing that as quick as we've heard about these things moving, if they had really wanted to get me and you, there's probably not a whole lot Doc and Noah could have done about it.
No. In fact, they might have been hard pressed to get to the truck themselves.
Yeah. If Doc
we were far enough out we could have got.
If Doc hadn't had that thermal that night,
I think
might not be sitting here on this show if they'd wanted to.
I think the reason we're both here to tell the story is two things. Doc spotted them on thermal, and neither of us took a shot.
Yeah.
If somebody had got spooked and cacked off around, I think it would have been a whole different story that night.
Yeah, because that was
and that's exactly why we got to be real cautious when we take groups out, because it ain't going to take but one person spooking, cacking off a couple rounds, and that goes from a creepy encounter to a gunfight.
And the problem with a gunfight is if you can't see what you're shooting at,
you're probably not going to win that gunfight.
but what you're shooting at can see you.
Yeah, that's a very one-sided fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is exactly why we're very cautious about not expending rounds. It's got to be one of those situations where we clearly have no choice.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I've got that tombstone courage most times. Y'all know, and everybody makes jokes about it. And it is what I give you plenty of opportunity to make the jokes about it, because I do. I don't think about it until well after the fact, which is probably not a good thing. But I still understand that there's a very inherent danger about going out and going off half cock, so to speak.
Well, that's why we kind of heavily pad our outings with either current or retired law enforcement or people that have been in combat, because that means people are going to be cool under fire. Wyatt was perfect. Even though he wasn't a cop or hadn't been in the military, he just fit right in. But
he's hunted all his life too, though.
Oh yeah, but look who was in that party that night. Estrella was a combat veteran and a cop. Jenkins is a retired cop. I'm a retired cop. You're still currently a cop. Noah was raised by a cop, and then Wyatt's a lifelong hunter. So there wasn't anybody out there that wasn't familiar with firearms or how to be quiet.
K Bowers, I always go heel.
Yeah, if I'm not in my underwear, I'm healed. I know that's not a pretty visual, but that's just a fact of it. If I'm awake and dressed, I'm armed, and even when I'm sleeping, there's one where I can reach it and just grab it like this. Just, in fact, right where I sleep is a 357 Magnum and a 45 Colt. So I got my choice as to which one.
Mm-hmm.
Both loaded with law enforcement grade hollow points.
Yeah, about the only time I don't go heel is when I'm in the shower. And there's still one close then.
Yeah, there's one on the counter right outside that shower. I know that's the way it is with me. Why, since he's got two in his hotel drawer, heck yeah. Hey, in Florida is a constitutional carry state, so you're good. B. Burton says, DA, glad you like the pen. I love it. Yeah. I might have to have you send me another one, because I think Annette's going to steal this one the first time I put my hat down somewhere.
Yeah, Miss Verby was zipping around on her jazzy chair, giving everybody, making sure everybody got their pins.
Yeah, if you let me know where you got them, I might just order a bunch of them. John Wayne says sandbag. I think he's read Mount Dora.
Chandler, you're probably right, but you know, I don't know no other way to be.
Yeah, Robbie might get it, but it ain't gonna be because he was scared.
Stupid,
That night,
but not scared.
That night in Joe Bald, I'm afraid that you might have got if you'd have went on down that game trail, because the next day when we found that blind, you'd have been on top of that thing in the dark before you even knew it was there.
Yeah, and
it would have got you.
The only thing that stopped me was you sending Noah to grab a hold of me and pull me back too. So,
yeah, because that next morning when we went back there with some sunlight, that's when we found that blind, and you would have walked right past that blind.
Yeah, I was heading that straight, because I was walking down that path that you walked down. You and Noah walked down when I was hiding in it. That's exactly where I was walking. So. You know, tears what it is. That's why the Robbie Wrangler was born.
Yeah. You want to segue us into the next segment?
Sure. The hunter in the Mark Twain National Forest wasn't the only one to hear that scream or to feel that presence in the timber. 6 years earlier, in 1998, a group of campers at Alley Springs heard a scream so loud it shook the trees. And the rangers who responded, they heard it too. Segment 4, Alley Springs, 1998. DA, take it away.
Alley Springs kind of sits in the heart of the Missouri Ozarks. It's a place where the water is impossibly clear, and there are bluffs that just rise straight up out of the river, and the forest feels thick enough to swallow you. The campground there is peaceful. It's tucked between the Spring Branch and the timbered hills that rise on all sides. But in the summer of 1998, that campground was nearly full. Families, fishermen, a few backpackers passing through. It was a warm night, the kind where the air hangs heavy and the insects hum loud enough to feel like a blanket of sound. At around 11 p.m., though, that blanket tore. A scream ripped through the campground. Sudden, violent, and sharp enough to make people sit upright in their tents. It wasn't a coyote yip or it wasn't a bobcat scream. It was deeper, longer, and it had weight behind it, like it came from something big. One camper later told the rangers that it felt like the scream shook the trees, and several others said the sound hit them in the chest like a pressure wave. Where have we heard that before?
Many places. Noble!
Yeah. People stepped out of their tents looking around at the timber. Dogs barked and then went quiet. Kids started crying. Adults were standing frozen, just listening. Then the scream came again. This time it echoed off the bluff behind the spring, bouncing back, distorted, and doubled. It sounded like two voices overlapping, one low, one high, both rising into a tearing, human-like shriek that didn't match any known animal. Someone ran to the campground host. Someone else called 911. Within 2 minutes, 2 National Park Service rangers arrived. They stepped out of their truck expecting maybe a hiker in distress or a drunk camper or possibly even a bobcat. They'd heard and seen all of those before, but they weren't prepared for what happened next. As they walked toward the tree line, the scream erupted again, so loud and so close that one ranger actually drew his gun. The sound rolled through the hollow like a physical force, echoing off the bluffs and coming back in layers. Both rangers froze in their tracks. They knew bobcat sounds, they knew foxes, and they knew coyotes. They knew that there was the occasional mountain lion that came through the Ozarks. This wasn't any of those. The scream had a depth to it, a resonance, and it didn't fit the local range of animals that they knew. It started low, almost like a moan, and then climbed into a howl. Then it snapped into a scream so sharp it made the hair on their arms stand up. They swept the tree line with their flashlights. Nothing. No eye shine, no movement, no tracks, nothing. The woods were dead quiet. No insects, no owls, no wind. Just that heavy, suffocating quiet that follows a predator's presence. One ranger radioed for additional units. The other moved along the edge of the timber, looking for any sign of a person or an animal that could be making that sound. But the scream didn't come again. Not that night, not for the rest of the summer, and they still have yet to hear it in that same park. The rangers filed the reports noting that it was an unidentified vocalization not consistent with known wildlife. They didn't speculate, they didn't theorize, they just wrote down what they'd heard. Campers, however, talked about it for weeks. Some said it sounded like a woman being attacked. Some said it sounded like a giant cat. And some others said it sounded like something injured. But the rangers, the ones who know the woods in that area, who know the animals and the sounds in that area, said it wasn't any of those. Whatever screamed at Alley Spring that night was something else. It was something big, something powerful, and something that made the woods go dead silent. And in a place as old and wild as the Ozarks, silence ain't ever just silence. It's a warning. And we've heard that silence right here in the Ozarks many times, haven't we, Robbie?
Yes, we have.
The Ozarks seem to be a natural corridor for things like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we've talked about all these areas that we've been to. I can't think of one area that we've been to where we haven't experienced that.
Yeah, even down at Middle Cave, we had stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, that first time that me, you, and Noah went in broad daylight, there was. I mean, that was like what, 80 degrees or something out there, and we didn't hear any. I mean, there was barely even any insects buzzing around.
Right. Was it the first time or second time when there were all the rangers down there?
Second time.
Because I've been down to Middle Cave dozens of times and never seen a ranger once. Because that second time Robbie and I went down there, there were 7 or 8 down there, all over the place. Still don't know why.
It was just me, you, and Noah, and we didn't see hardly anybody. And then the second time was just me and you, and they were all over the place.
Yeah, there was rangers everywhere, and we never could figure out why.
Because I think that second time was the night we were going to meet Chris, right? Mm-hmm. And we went down because we had some time to kill before we were supposed to meet him, and we went down there, and that's when we saw there were rangers everywhere. Yeah, and
it's still to this day, I've never found an explanation on why there were so many Missouri Department of Conservation rangers down there. I understand there's a wildlife management area, but I've never down in the same area. It's not in the wildlife management area. It's close to it, but I've never seen that many rangers in one place ever before.
John Wayne Gates said that story makes him rethink on getting a 50 AE.
Yeah, that's no joke. I wish I could afford one.
The old Action Express.
Heck yeah.
Jed's favorite sidearm.
Dang right. Since we've got 8 of these things, we're not gonna talk about them about these. We've been talking about them individually. I think we're just gonna keep going through these and then kind of talk about them all at the end. Just talk about the similarities. Alley Springs isn't the only place where this scream came with a physical evidence. 9 years later in Taney County, incidentally, Taney County is the county we were in when we were on Combs Ferry. Taney County, which is also where Drury Mincy is. Taney County residents reported that same warped howl, and livestock started showing up mauled in ways that didn't match coyotes, dogs, or any known Ozarks predator. Robbie, take her away.
Segment 5, Taney County 2007, the livestock kill and the warped howl. Taney County sits on the southern edge of Missouri, where the Ozarks begin to twist into sharper ridges and deeper hollows. It's a place where farms sit tucked between the steep timbered hills, where gravel roads wind like veins through the countryside, and where the nights can feel impossibly dark. In the fall of 2007, a series of strange events unfolded along a rural stretch of county road. Events that began with a sound and ended with something far more tangible. Started with a howl. Residents living along the wooded ridge began reporting a strange vocalization late at night. A long, warped howl that didn't match coyotes, didn't match dogs, and didn't match anything they were familiar with. It rose in pitch dipped, then rose again, ending in a sharp tearing note that several people described as wrong, like the sound was bent. One man said it sounded like a coyote being played through a broken speaker. Another said it sounded like a wolf trying to mimic a bobcat. A woman who lived there alone said it made her lock the doors in her house every night. The howl came every few nights, always from the timber and always after midnight. Dogs barked at first, then they just stopped barking altogether. A week later, the first livestock kill appeared. A farmer found one of his goats dead near the edge of the woods. Not dragged, not torn apart, but mauled in a way that didn't match coyotes or feral dogs. The bite radius was far too wide and the crushing force too strong. The wounds were too deep. He called the sheriff's office, and they called the Missouri Department of Conservation. An MDC
Yeah,
agent,
they're always a big help.
oh yeah, an MDC agent examined the carcass and noted something unusual. The bite pattern didn't match any known predator in the region. Well, I think the people already knew that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think they
Gee,
needed.
thanks for the explanation
Yeah.
there.
I don't think they
Dipstick.
needed MDC to tell them that.
Yeah.
Not a coyote, not a dog, not a bobcat, not a cougar. The agent didn't speculate. He just wrote down what he saw. 2 nights later, the howl came again, louder this time, closer to their homes. People stepped out on the porches listening. The sound rolled through the hollow like a warped siren, rising and falling in the way it didn't match any natural cadence.
See, that's an actual Ozarks thing right there. You hear something howling like that, or even a tornado, and we're all out on our porches trying to get a look.
Yeah, I think that's just a natural redneck thing because that's the way we do things here in South Carolina too.
We might have a gun and a flashlight, but we're going outside.
Absolutely. One resident said it felt like the sound vibrated the siding on the house. The next morning, another goat was found dead. Same pattern, same crushing force, same wide bite radius. Guess what? MDC returned. They found tracks this time, though. Large, deep impressions in the soft earth near the tree line. The tracks were incomplete, distorted by leaves and moisture. They were big. Bigger than a coyote, bigger than a dog, bigger than anything that should have been moving through those woods. The agent noted the tracks as unidentifiable. Imagine that. That night, the howl came again, but this time it wasn't alone.
Hey, Robbie, I want to. Sorry to interrupt you here, but something just occurred to me, and I wanted to get it out before I forgot it. These attacks, crushing force. Wasn't that the way the bite force of the short-faced bear was described?
Yep,
Crushing
that's it.
force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a terrifying thought. Maybe the short-faced bear is the explanation for the Ozarks howler.
Well, we've talked about that. We've said that that's a very distinct possibility.
I
Yeah.
don't want to run into one of them.
Never wonder why there's no other bears in Missouri
No kidding.
because that one's done run them all off.
Or ate 'em.
Yeah, or that doesn't mean it. A resident reported hearing something moving through the timber behind his house. Heavy footfalls, slow and deliberate, pacing along the ridge. He stepped out with a flashlight, sweeping the beam across the trees. The woods went silent. Then the howl erupted from less than 100 yards away, so loud and so sharp it made him drop the flashlight. He ran back inside and called the sheriff's office, convinced something was stalking the neighborhood. Deputies arrived, swept the area, and found nothing. No tracks, no movement, no eye shine. Just the thick, oppressive quiet that followed every scream in every case so far. Over the next weekend, the howls continued sporadically, but the livestock kills stopped. Whatever had been moving through the timber seemed to move on, leaving behind only the damaged animals, the unidentifiable tracks, and the memory of that warped, unnatural howl. MDC closed the case without a conclusion. The sheriff's office logged it as an animal attack, species undetermined. Locals still talk about that fall, not because they think it was a monster. They don't, but because they know the predators in their woods. They know what coyotes do, they know what dogs do, and they know what bobcats do. And whatever killed those goats, whatever left those tracks, and whatever screamed in the timber didn't match any of them. It was something else. something strong, something fast, something that moved through the Ozarks like it belonged there. And in Taney County, the memory of that warped howl still lingers, a reminder that sometimes the woods don't just hide things, sometimes they announce them. So, we're just going straight into the segue for you starting that. Is that what you said?
Yeah, let's do that.
The Taney County case gave us something new, physical evidence. But 2 years later, the Ozarks produced something even more compelling. A backpacker in the Ozark Highlands Trail captured a recording of a scream itself, and biologists couldn't match it to any known species.
And no, I was not able to obtain a copy of the recording. I tried, but I didn't.
Segment 6, Ozark Highlands Trail, 2019. DA, take it away.
The Ozark Highland Trail is one of the most remote, rugged, long-distance trails in the United States. It's 270 miles of ridge lines, deep hollows, creek crossings, and stretches of timber so thick that the sky disappears, just like down on Blunk Road. It's a place where hikers can go days without seeing another person, where the nights feel ancient and the woods seem to just breathe around you. But in the fall of 2019, a solo backpacker set out on a multi-day section hike along one of the trail's most isolated stretches. He wasn't inexperienced. He'd hiked the Ozark Highlands Trail before. He knew the terrain, he knew the wildlife, and he knew the sounds of the Ozarks make after dark. But on his second night, he heard something he couldn't explain. He'd set up camp on a narrow ridge above the creek, a kind of spot where the wind funnels through the trees and the night sounds echo off the hills. The fire had burned down to embers, and the woods were settling into that deep, layered quiet that only comes after midnight. He was sitting in his tent, listening to the insects and the distant trickle of the water, and then the woods went silent. Not gradually, not naturally, just like someone flipped a switch, they just went dead silent. The insects stopped, the wind died, the air felt heavy, like the woods were holding its breath. He unzipped his tent and stepped out, listening. At first, there was nothing, just the kind of stillness that makes your skin prickle. Then it came, a long, rising howl that started low, almost like a moan again, and climbed into a pitch until it broke into a sharp, tearing scream that echoed through the hollow like a shockwave. The sound rolled across the bridge, bounced off the opposite hillside, and came back distorted, doubled, and almost metallic. The backpacker froze. He'd heard coyotes, he'd heard foxes, and he'd heard bobcats scream in the night, and this wasn't any of those. This was deeper, louder, and heavier. It had a resonance that didn't fit the vocal range of any animal he knew. He grabbed his phone and hit record. A few seconds later, the scream came again. Closer this time. Sharper, with a strange warble in the middle that made it feel wrong. Like something was bending the pitch in a way no natural animal should. The recording captured everything. The rise, the break, the tearing finish, and the echo that followed. He stayed still, barely breathing, listening for movement. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no rustling, just the scream, and then silence. He didn't sleep much that night. I can't say that I blame him. The next morning, he packed up early and hiked out faster than he'd planned. When he finally reached a spot where he had some cell service, he sent the recording to the Arkansas Game and Fish, asking if they could identify the animal. A few days later, he got a response. Biologists had reviewed the audio. Guess what they ruled out? Coyotes, fox, bobcats, cougars, wolves, domestic dogs, and humans. All of them ruled out. The official note read, vocalization does not match any known species in Arkansas. They didn't speculate, they didn't offer any theories, they just stated the simple fact. The backpacker posted the recording online, which I still can't find, and other hikers chimed in, some saying they'd heard similar screams along the Ozarks Highland Trail, others saying they'd heard it near the Buffalo River, and still others saying they'd heard it in the Boston Mountains. This all goes back to the Boston Mountains. The pattern was unmistakable. A long rising howl, a warped tearing scream, echoes that didn't sound natural, silence before and after. And always in the deep timber, always at night, and always in places where the woods feel older than memory. The 2019 recording remains one of the clearest pieces of evidence in the Ozark Scream phenomenon. Not because it proves anything supernatural, because it proves something real. Something was screaming in those woods. Something big and powerful. And something that didn't match any of the animals we know. And the forest reacted the same way it did in Newton County and Devil's Den and Mark Twain, Alley Springs, and Taney County. It just went dead quiet. Whatever made that sound, the woods knew that sound, and that might be the most unsettling part of it before, that the animals in the area went quiet because they had heard it before. But the 2019 recording gave us a sound, but the Ozarks still have a long history of encounters that go well beyond audio. And one of the oldest, most unsettling cases comes from Shannon County in 1982. When a group of guys who were gigging. I don't know if you guys are familiar with gigging. It's where you go with you got a gigging pole and you set in your boat and you gig frogs. The couple guys were gigging on the current river, were stalked through the timber by something that sounded like a man being torn apart. This is the Shannon County incident.
Segment 7, Shannon County, 1982, the River Stalker. Shannon County is one of the wildest parts of the Missouri Ozarks, a place where the hills rise steep and sudden, where the hollows run narrow and deep, and where the current river cuts through the landscape like a cold green blade. At night, the river becomes a different world entirely. The fog rolls low, the timber crowds the banks, and the darkness feels thick enough to touch. In the summer of 1982, a group of giggers, 3 men and a john boat, pushed off from the gravel bar just after dusk. And which river is this connected to any of the rivers that we've dealt with?
The Buffalo River and the Current River both go into Arkansas and empty down, I believe, into Bull Shoals Lake. So no, we haven't actually been down to either. I've been down there, but I haven't taken you guys down there yet.
Okay.
Because it's a bit of a drive from Springfield. We're looking at 3, maybe 4 hours.
Okay. I was just curious if it was some of the stuff we'd seen.
I haven't taken you guys down there yet, but it's on the agenda.
They'd grown up on that river, and they knew every bend, every shoal, every place where the water deepened into black pools. They weren't afraid of the dark. They weren't afraid of the woods. That night, the woods just felt wrong. The air was still, and the insects were quiet. The river moved slow and heavy, like it was holding something beneath its surface. They drifted along the bank, lantern lights shimmering across the water, spears ready. The only sounds were the soft splash and paddle of the occasional plunk of a frog diving off a rock. Then they heard it. A heavy footfall in the timber above the bank, slow, deliberate, too heavy to be a deer. The men froze, listening. The footsteps paced them, matching the speed of the boat as it drifted downstream. One of the men whispered, "That ain't no deer." Another said it sounded like a man walking, but heavier, more controlled, like something was stalking them from the ridge. They kept drifting, and the footsteps kept pace. Every time the boat slowed, the footsteps slowed. Every time they pushed off with the paddle, the footsteps quickened. Then the sound stopped. The woods went dead silent. No insects, no owls, no wind. Just the thick, suffocating quiet that comes right before something happens. And then it did. A scream tore out through the timber, so loud, so violent, and so raw that all 3 men dropped to their knees in the boat. It wasn't a bobcat scream. It wasn't a fox. It wasn't a coyote. It was deeper and sharper and carried a human-like edge that made their blood run cold. One of the men later told deputies it sounded like a man being torn apart. The scream echoed off the river bluffs, bouncing back in jagged, broken pieces. The lantern flickered, the boat rocked, the men grabbed their spears, scanning the tree line, but the darkness swallowed everything beyond the first row of trees. Then the scream came again, closer this time, lower on the ridge, maybe 50 yards from the water. The sound rolled across the river like a shock wave vibrating the surface. The men didn't wait. They shoved the paddle in the water and pushed hard, letting the current carry them away from the bank. The footsteps started again, fast this time, moving parallel to the boat, crashing through the underbrush with a force that didn't match any known animal in the region. Whatever it was big, and it was following them. They drifted into a wider stretch of river farther from the bank. Footsteps stopped. The scream didn't come again, and the woods stayed silent, as if whatever had been stalking them had melted back into the darkness. When they reached the next access point, they pulled the boat out of the water and drove straight to the sheriff's office. They weren't hysterical and they weren't drunk. They were just confused, or they weren't confused. They were angry and scared and absolutely certain of what they had heard. Deputies took the report seriously and went and checked the area, but they didn't find anything. They didn't find any tracks, no broken branches, no sign of a person or animal. But the deputies didn't dismiss the men, not after hearing the way they described the scream, not after hearing how the footsteps paced them down the boat, and not after hearing how the woods went silent. The sheriff's office logged the incident as unidentified animal, vocalization described as human-like scream. Locals still talk about that night. Some say it was a big cat. Some say it was a feral person. Some say it was something that was injured. But the giggers, the ones who lived their whole lives on the river, said it wasn't any of those. Whatever screamed at them that night was something else, something that moved like a predator, something that watched them from the ridge, something that followed them through the dark timber. And in Shannon County, where the river runs deep and the woods run deeper, the scream still echoes in the stories people tell. And the Shannon County case showed us something new, not just a scream, but a predator-like pursuit. But the Ozarks weren't done. In 2020, a search and rescue team in Buffalo River Wilderness heard not one scream, but two from opposite ridges, while thermal imaging showed nothing in the woods at all. Segment 8, Buffalo River SAR 2020 begins now.
The Buffalo National River Wilderness is one of the most remote and rugged and unforgiving landscapes in the Ozarks. The ridges rise steep and jagged, the hollow runs narrow and deep, and the timber grows so thick in places that even daylight struggles to get to the ground. It's a place where people can disappear, not because of anything supernatural, but because the land itself is wild enough to swallow you whole. In the spring of 2020, a search and rescue team was deployed to locate a missing hiker who'd failed to return from a solo overnight trip. The man was experienced, familiar with the area, and left a clear itinerary. When he didn't show up, SAR mobilized quickly. The team moved into the wilderness just before dusk, splitting into two groups to cover more ground. They carried radios, GPS units, thermal imagers, and the kind of quiet confidence that comes from years of training in the backcountry. But that night, the woods just felt different. The air was heavy, the wind was still, and the forest had that strange, expectant silence that SAR teams know all too well, the kind that means something is out there watching them. At around 10 p.m., the first team was moving along a narrow ridge when the woods went dead silent. The insects stopped, the owls stopped, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. One of the team members whispered, "Do you feel that?" But before anyone could answer, a scream tore through the hollow from below them. A long, rising howl that snapped into a violent, tearing scream that echoed off the ridges like a shock wave. The sound was so loud it vibrated the leaves on the trees. They froze. These weren't inexperienced hikers. These were trained search and rescue personnel, people who knew the sounds of the Ozarks better than most. They'd heard bobcats, foxes, coyotes, feral hogs, and even the occasional mountain lion roar. This wasn't any of those. The scream had weight behind it, a resonance that didn't fit the local range of known wildlife. It started low, climbed steadily, and then broke into a sharp, human-like shriek that made the hair on their arms stand up. They radioed for the second team. But before they could finish the transmission, a second scream erupted, this time from the other side of the ridge. Two different screams, two different locations from two different sources. Both identical, both unnatural, and both echoing through the wilderness like something was calling across the hollow. The second team stopped in their tracks. One of them raised the thermal imager and scanned the ridge where the scream had come from. Nothing. No heat signatures, no animals, no movement, just cold timber and empty air. The first team scanned the ridge. Same result. Nothing. The woods stayed silent. That thick, suffocating quiet that had followed every scream in every case across the Ozarks. The teams regrouped, shaken but focused. They continued the search, calling out for the missing hiker, listening for any sign of movement. but the screams didn't come back. Not that night, not during the rest of the search. The missing hiker was found the next morning, alive, disoriented, but unharmed. He had no memory of hearing anything unusual. He'd simply gotten turned around in the dark and spent the night in a hollow in the low part of a hollow. Search and Rescue filed a report noting the screams as unidentified vocalizations, 2 sources, no thermal signatures detected. They didn't speculate, they didn't theorize, they just wrote what had happened. But off the record, several team members admitted the same thing. They'd never heard anything like it. Not in all their years in the Ozarks. Not in all their training or all their searches. 2 screams, 2 different ridges. No animals, no heat signatures, no explanation. Whatever made those sounds was big enough to shake the hollows, loud enough to echo across the ridges, but quiet enough to leave no trace, and smart enough to stay out of sight. And in the Buffalo River Wilderness, a place where the land keeps its secrets, that might be the most unsettling part of it all. I've been down there in the Buffalo River Wilderness. That's some woolly country. But them not being able to pick it up on thermal is really not that surprising, because if it was far enough back in the timber, all they would see is trees.
Yeah. And
or far enough back off that ridge line, because they're only going to be able to see up at an angle.
And that's something that Doc and I kind of put to the test that night with his thermal. Up there at that cemetery, there's some low hanging trees that's just got, and I'm not talking like really thick branches, just the kind of like a weeping willow, but not that, but just kind of hang down like that. So when we got the thermal out, and this is the one that we could slave to the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I had the thermal and was watching him, and I watched him walk out, and he walked about 15 yards away from me, and I couldn't see him with just my eyes anymore, but I could still see him on the thermal. So he kept on walking, and he got to that tree, and he turned, and he went behind the tree where those branches hung down, and they only hung down just below his chest, and from his chest up, I couldn't see anything. I could still see his legs because they were, literally, he was probably 30 or 40 yards away from me.
And that explains a lot of why we miss stuff on thermal. Because if there's something that's ambient temperature between you and the heat source, you're not going to see it.
Yeah. And those were not, it wasn't like it was because if I'd have shined a flashlight, I would have been able to see him through those limbs. But there was enough of it to completely obscure the upper half of his body because he was standing behind it. So that's just proof positive that happens.
Yeah. Thermal is fallible.
Yeah. But thermal don't lie.
Thermal don't lie. When it works great. But when you're in the thick woods, you may not see anything. Or if you do, it just be a little flash of heat.
Yeah.
And you can't get a shape if the shape's broken up by trees.
So but it also shows that you can't be completely 100% dependent on technology either, because there are things in nature that can defeat that technology.
Yep. And if they're smart enough I wouldn't say they would be intelligent enough to understand what thermal was, but they probably understand what line of sight is. And if something can see it, something can shoot it. So they probably stay out of line of sight.
Yeah.
Using natural terrain to hide behind and things like that. Yeah, that would definitely be a reasonable explanation on, them using their terrain to their advantage. Bobby, hope you get feeling better, man. Have a good night. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I feel better, Bobby.
T-Bone, you're right. Whenever you see a place like Devil's Den or Werewolf Springs, they're not named that by accident.
That one's finally picking up, by the way.
That's good. But tonight we talked about 8 cases, folks. 8 real encounters, 8 moments where the Ozarks broke their silence and something screamed back. From Newton County to Devil's Den to Mark Twain to the Buffalo River, the pattern's pretty unmistakable. A sound that doesn't match any known species, heard by hunters, hikers, rangers, deputies, biologists, and search and rescue teams. Whatever's making that scream, it's real, and it's out there, and the Ozarks know it. There's a moment in every investigation when the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These 8 cases from different places over different years with lots of different witnesses, different types of terrain, under different circumstances, all heard the same sound. A long rising howl that breaks into a tearing scream. A voice that doesn't match any known animal in the Ozarks. A sound powerful enough to shake hollows, silence forests, and stop trained professionals in their tracks. We heard it in Newton County. We heard it in Devil's Den. We heard it in the Mark Twain and Alley Springs. We heard it in Taney County and on the Ozark Highlands Trail and along the Current River and deep in the Buffalo River wilderness. Hunters heard it. Campers have heard it. Rangers have heard it. Deputies have heard it. Search and rescue teams have heard it. And now biologists have listened to it on a recording and couldn't identify it. And the woods reacted the same way every single time. They went dead silent. That's the part that sticks with you. Not the scream itself, but the way the forest responds, the way the insects stop, the way the wind dies, the way the night holds its breath, like it recognizes the sound even if we don't. Something is moving through the Ozarks. Something that doesn't fit the catalog of known wildlife. Something that leaves no tracks, no heat signature, no clear evidence. Just a voice powerful enough to echo across ridges and lodge itself in the memory of everyone who hears it. And we're not here to try to tell you what it is. We've told you a few things that we think it might be, but we're not going to try to tell you what it is. We're not dealing in absolutes here. We're not here to sell you a monster or even a myth. We're here to follow the evidence, the real reports, the real encounters, the real voices of people who live and work in these woods. And all the evidence says the same thing. There is a scream in the timber. It's real, it's documented, and it's probably not going away. So if you've heard something you like this and you've been in the Ozarks at night and felt the woods go quiet around you, we want to hear your story. Send your encounters to D.A. Roberts at daroberts.net. Your voice helps us to keep the hunt alive. And if you're still with us at the end of this journey through the dark timber, do us a favor. Like the episode, share it with somebody who knows the woods, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support the show directly, consider becoming a channel member. It does help keep the research going, keep the stories coming, and keep us shining in a light into places that most people don't even want to look. So until next time, y'all stay safe out there, stay aware, and remember, when the woods go silent, something else is going to speak. This was episode 411, folks, The Scream in the Timber, and you've been listening to the Nightmare Hunters. So before we sign off for the night, there's a couple of things I'd like to cover. I'm not saying this for any kind of outpouring of anything, but if you guys want to say a few prayers, that would be awesome. I'm having a lot of heart issues. Just staying that flat. I'm finding that I get exhausted just walking from the chair to the car. I lose my breath. I'm walking with a cane every day. I've backslid a long way. And I think a lot of that was because my cardiologist screwed up my meds. We're still trying to get them straightened out, and I'm hoping I'll be feeling better in the next week or two. But at the moment, I'm not in great shape. And still trying to deal with pain management over my back. But this congestive heart failure is a pain in the butt. But because of that, I don't have as much energy as I would like to have. So for the time being, we're going to be suspending some shows. I won't be doing Monday Mayhem at all until I get to feeling better. So Monday Mayhem, I apologize, folks, but I know we were in the middle of something. But we'll pick it right back up when we pick back up. But for the foreseeable future, there won't be a Monday Mayhem. I'm just going to have to do that. And also, I think we're only going to do the show on Wednesday nights. I don't think we're going to do a Saturday show unless I'm feeling a lot better. Might be a surprise one. But for the the coming future, I think we're just going to do the show on Wednesday nights. And that's nothing bad about anybody or anything. It's just a health issue. And because I'm tired all the time, and you've probably seen me fidgeting a lot tonight. I'm fidgeting now. But even doing this show tonight has worn me out. I am exhausted. I'm probably going to have to go to bed as soon as I'm done with the show. So I know but the first and foremost out of all of this, what I've got to express is my writing has to come first. I love doing these shows, but the writing is what keeps the lights on. It's what keeps food on the table. And I got Mount Dora out. I'm about to get Leviathan Down finished. I've already got the cover mostly done on Leviathan Down. And I've got other books I'm working on, but I've got to get those books out because I'll just put the cards on the table. It's been a bad year, very bad. So I need to get more books out and concentrate on trying to build back up to kind of get us out of the hole we're in. And unfortunately, it's kind of all on me because Annette's not much better off than I am. Her leg, she's going to have double knee replacement, I'm pretty sure. So just to let you all know, we will probably only be doing Wednesday shows for a while. I don't know how long it'll be until I could feel like I could do it. I mean, I'm just, you could ask Annette because she doesn't want to pop on the show, but you could ask her if you guys know her. I can't get through a day without taking a nap. I mean, I'll get up, I can sleep 10 hours and 3 hours later, I've got to take a nap. I mean, it's that bad. Going to the store just about killed me the other day. And that was even riding in one of those electric carts, which I find embarrassing, but I still had to do it. So that's just where we're at, folks, unfortunately. So I apologize. I hate it. I hate that we've got to do it, but until things change, there won't be any Monday Mayhem or Saturday shows. We'll just be doing Wednesday shows. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I just want to thank you guys for all the love and support that this channel's got over the years. But we really appreciate you guys, everything you guys do. And hopefully this will just be temporary. So having said that, make sure you guys are checking out all of the awesome books by the amazing Luca T. Jacobs, by this maniac over here, Robert Jed Raines, who has now, 9 books out now?
Yeah, 9, and then I did the rework, author's cut or whatever of the of Silver Star, so I guess that's technically 10.
It's technically 10, so you're catching Luca, dude. He's got 10 books out. Doc's got 1 book out, and it's an awesome book. His second book's going to be coming pretty soon, and I think you guys are really going to like that. Miss Lene, there probably won't be another ad tonight. We're going to be wrapping things up here in just a minute, so it's not that I don't want to go longer. That's why we kind of stopped doing the talking points between each segment, because I wanted to get through all of this material before I was so tired I couldn't keep going. So what we'll be doing is I want to plug the shows. We've been plugging the what's the word I'm looking for? Plugging the books and plugging the affiliates throughout the show. I've been posting the links. So check out the great folks over at Dark Angel Medical. I know Doc could use the orders right now, so this is a great time for you to buy a new kit. Probably show them the kit you got, because mine's out of reach.
No, mine's out of reach too.
Mine is like on the other side. Doc's got a new leather kit called the Dark Frontiersman. Oh, dude, you guys got to see this kit. It is awesome. So check it out. Pick up a kit. Don't forget to use discount code cryptid20 for 20% off your order. And then check out the good folks over at Scallywag Tactical. They got some fantastic blades.
And that's about the I didn't want to interrupt you, but something about that new kit that my son-in-law pointed out, because he's a motorcycle rider. Any of you bike riders out there, that Frontiersman kit is perfect for putting on handlebars. So if you want a med kit that fits on your handlebars, it's perfect for that.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that, brother. Yeah, that kit is just fantastic, and the high quality leather kit with the Dark Angel logo on it, just a beautiful kit. I've got one. Robbie's got one. You guys really ought to grab one while they last. He's looking at making it a permanent part, but right now he's a permanent part of the inventory. But right now it's a limited run, so get them while they last.
To see how it does. So if you want to stick around, show him.
Absolutely. And again, check out all the affiliates and the good folks over at SigwoArms.com. Great group of guys. They do amazing work, and show them some love. And if you're a veteran or a first responder, you'll actually get a bigger discount than what we get through the show. But the show discount's pretty generous, considering how much 5% can add up on a purchase of a pew pew. Check out SigwoArms.com. Use discount code Bigfoot5 for 5% off your order. If you're first responder, tell them because they'll bump that up to 10%. So check all those folks out. Check out all the books. Buy some books, folks. If you guys haven't had a chance to read my newest one, which is called Hangman's Legacy, the Mount Dora Incident. It's a new group of characters. It's a whole new series. I honestly, and I'm not just saying this, I honestly think it's the best thing I've ever written in my life. And I'm going to be hard pressed to top it.
Sure.
I'm super proud of it.
Yes.
Doc calls it my magnum opus. It's about 536 pages long. It is not a small book. Big, heavy commitment to reading, but I'm getting a lot of great feedback on it. So I hope you guys check it out, and I hope you guys love it as much as I did.
What's up, Jerry? Funny story about that. Me and Doc were looking through books, and he said something about his long drive. I said, "Well, hell, son," I said, "You get DA's new book on that." I said, "That'll cover you. You'll be still have an hour left to listen to after you get done driving." It was 17 hours on Audible.
Holy moly! That 17 hours of audio. I haven't even checked the audio. I didn't know how long it was. That's crazy.
Yeah. I rolled through it, and he said something about trying to get something to kill the time. I said, "There you go, buddy." I said, "That'll give you an extra hour." Good show last night, Jerry. I enjoyed it.
So, folks, unfortunately, that's just where we are. So we'll probably only be doing Wednesday shows for a while. I really want to get this medical stuff straightened out because I really want to get back out in the woods. I've been dying to. Noah and I actually went out this last Sunday. We were going to go down to Drury Mincy, but Wyatt was unavailable. I don't want to go down there with just two of us. So we just ended up going down to Fellows Lake here in Springfield. But there has been a couple of sightings. Oh, it's outside of Springfield, but when there have been a couple sightings out there, but it was someplace I could easily get to from the car. But I do want to get back out there, and hopefully that'll be happening soon.
That's speaking about time on Audible, I was kind of impressed with myself because Blood of Algard was my biggest book so far, and it was like 9 hours on Audible. So I was like, I'm moving on up because I think Silver Star, the first run of it, was only like 4 hours or so. Got to move it on up there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, you are, brother. I'm proud of you. But folks, we're gonna start wrapping things up because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Ordinarily, we would have to break for a commercial, but since we're cutting it out anyway, I'm just going to push it through. Don't forget to check on your friends and family who are veterans and first responders. Let them know you think about them. Let them know you care, because 22 a day is 22 too many. So check on them. Let them know you care. Let them know they're not alone. And I'm going to take us out with the quote tonight, because I've got it committed to memory and I don't have to mess around bringing it up. But join us for the quote for the toast. And we will see you guys next week. And the quote is this. It's from an old Irish drinking song. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everyone. Slàinte, and thank you for being part of the Nightmare Nation. Good night, everyone.
Slàinte.
winds are howling, saloon doors swinging, shadows growling. Three lawmen stand tough as rawhide. Yeah, Doc and DA, nothing can abide. Whiskey shots and poker faces, staring down the darkest spaces in this town where legends roam. These boys bring justice, sending evil home. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Jed's a howler, claws of steel. Doc's a biter, makes the devil real. But DA's a shifty one, a shape-shifting soul. Can turn to anything, takes any form, takes control. Tonight the chupacabras come to town, sucking the life from all around. But these lawmen, they ain't afraid. They'll face the darkness unafraid. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Full moon rides, bat wings flap, the air grows cold, a chill and trap. But these lawmen, they're ready to fight underneath the pale moonlight. Jed and Doc transform with a howl. DA shifts, becomes a night owl. Together they stand, a force so strong against the evil right in the wrong. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night.